Good evening. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to yet another edition of the BW Education Wednesday Wisdom. We've been doing this over the last 4 months, every Wednesday, and we brought leaders from the education domain, people who are leaders in this domain, and we've talked to them about various facets of the education domain. We talked to them about how technology is changing their domains. What are they doing to make themselves more technology friendly? Today, we are discussing the future of engineering education. We have four eminent leaders of the education domain with us. We'll talk to them about the future of engineering schools. My favorite question, can the engineering school of the future be on a cloud? You don't need physical infrastructure. All you need is great content, great faculty, and great industry linkages. You don't necessarily need a campus. So will the word campus undergo change? Today we are also discussing it with the backdrop of the new education policy, which was announced exactly a week back. So we'll also touch on how the new education policy has envisaged engineering education. Let me introduce our panelists. We have four panelists. Let me introduce in no particular order, Mr. Kunwar Shekhar Vijendra. He is the Chancellor of the Shobit University, and he's built this university from scratch. We have Dr. Madhu Chitkara, who's the Pro-Chancellor of the Chitkara University, and I've had the good fortune of visiting Chitkara University, and they've built massive infrastructure there, and they've tried to, make sure that every bit that is needed for education is catered for. We also have Professor Sandeep Sen, who's the Director of the School of Engineering at the Shivnadar University. It's a university that has come up very, very fast. Again, I have personal knowledge because I have friends whose children go there, and I also interact with all the stakeholders there. Last but not the least, we have Dr. V.S. Kanchana Bhaaskaran, who's joining us from the campus. She's the director of VIT, and we will be talking to all of them to get their opening comments, and then we'll do a discussion. Let me start with you, Kunwar Shekhar Vijendra ji. What is the future of engineering education? What are your comments?
Education has a very bright future, because without engineers, the world cannot survive. They are the creators. Temporarily, we may feel that there is a crisis, or in India where we start crying, shouting, there is no employment, there is no need of engineering colleges. So many seats have been reduced or increased. But if we look at holistically, the future of engineering education was there and will remain there forever.
Okay. And you're saying because technology immersion in every business has gone up, and hence you need engineers. Hence, is that the premise of what you are saying?
Yes, it is. Because today, if we look at, without technology, life cannot be there. And creation of new knowledge is happening through engineers. So it has to be there, and engineering future is very bright. However, when we look in India, if I look at, I was looking at a report, MIT has published a new engineering education transformation need. It came in 2017. In 2018, a report came from them. They published a report, The Global State of Art of Engineering Education. And if you look at that report, India, in the complete report, is referred only thrice. And we do not find any of our engineering colleges, neither in the current leaders or in emerging leaders list. Singapore is there, others are there. It means we have to look into our engineering colleges, our engineering education very seriously. And new education policy, it will be addressing it. It has some promising aspects. So it will address it, I am sure.
Dr. Madhu Chitkara, your opening comments, you heard Kunwar Shekhar Vijendra ji, and you built a large university from scratch. So it would be interesting to know your opening comments.
Sir, if we talk about the future of engineering schools now after post-COVID, we can say, and then whether things will be normal and the new normal will be how. So when I was just thinking about this, I think the new, if you see the future of the engineering schools, it will be industry driven and it will be industry aligned, industry endorsed, and industry ready. So in this sense, whatever curriculum we are making and whatever co-curricular activities we are doing, and this will be hand to hand with the industry and the academia together. Reason being that we have seen during lockdown that we needed the help of the industry, and during the sessions, during the online sessions, during the webinars, the people who were not able to come to the campuses because of the travel or because of their busy schedule, they were able to help the academia in their curriculum delivery, in their modules to be delivered. So in that way, I think we have experienced a very good bond between industry and academia. So when we talk about the future of engineering education, it will be the, otherwise also it is happening that industry is helping academia a lot. But now we have experienced, we have seen that without wasting much of our time in traveling, with the use of a good technology, and we can do the wonders for the students. And this is, I think this challenge and whatever crisis we have seen, it has given the opportunities to the school like our universities, especially the private ones, because we were able to get the support of industry, support of the local government, and support of the technology. Luckily, in case of our university, Chitkara University, we were very good in technology already, because 2014 we started with the online classes, we started with the technologies using, and if you see our main management tool, which we are using as a ERP, which is a chalkpad. So everything was happening on that module, and it was not a problem for management to handle the students and the faculty and the stakeholders. So I think the future will be the blended learning. It will be hybrid model will be used, where some model will be in the shape of online mode, some will be offline mode, and some can be with the help of the industry. I think this will be the future, which will be combination of these styles.
Thank you so much. Let me bring in Professor Sandeep Sen for his opening comments. Dr. Sen.
So I would agree to some extent with the previous speakers, but I'll be a little cautious about a couple of things. So one is that, engineering as such, as a whole in the country is definitely shrinking in terms of, there are many colleges that have closed down because we overproduced. There is no doubt about that. Compared to 90s, early 2000, since then there has been a decline because we overproduced for not only numbers, but I'm more worried about the quality that we are producing. So I think the colleges overestimated, or that it could also have been for motives beyond just education. They're just mushrooming of engineering colleges, and AICT probably did not pay too much attention at that point, which led to this situation that many of these colleges
quantity became more important than quality.
Absolutely.
So you're talking of the employability of engineering students. That's what
exactly. So engineering graduates are eventually expected to join the workforce of the industry. So no doubt about that. So if you overproduce or you don't produce the right quality, there's a problem. And there is also another situation that is happening now. In our overzealousness, to synergize the industry, I would say there is also some compromise happening with the basic curriculum of education. See, education, a 4-year engineering education, there is some holistic nature to the education. It cannot be simply about skilling. So there is a certain curriculum in engineering that has hardly changed in the last about 60 to 70 years. From the time even when I went to engineering college in IIT Kharagpur, that was in early 80s, to now, there's hardly any change in the curriculum. So that's a matter of concern. And that's why we are going a little out of gear with the kind of graduates the industry is expecting us to produce. And also it's a need of the local industry, right? So the curriculum is actually global. So if you look at the top engineering colleges in India, IITs and NITs and so on and so forth, and I think some of the new private universities are also trying to build up that. The curriculum is global, whereas the needs are local. Okay, so there is a mismatch there. So that's why I'm being cautious that, if we try to accommodate too much of, so eventually the industry wants shelf-ready people, and colleges cannot be producing that. It's the industry's responsibility, to fine-tune their skills, to get them over for 6 to 8 months and train them. And otherwise, every industry has its own needs, and university cannot cater to these different needs. There's a certain universality of the education. Okay, so now this is of course not related to what has happened in the last few months due to pandemic, etc. But what has certainly emerged,
historical issue which has not been addressed till.
Right.
The reason we are discussing post-COVID possibly.
Absolutely. So this is independent of that. But what COVID has done is that it has shown that technology can help us overcome some obstacles that COVID has presented. The way we could jump, almost within a week, change our media of instruction to online, jump onto the online platform. People quickly adapted because it's more or less a digital society. But then there are also students, who were left out, and that's the digital divide, right? But the technology to deliver education and the technology that we are trying to train students in, let's not confuse between
application the way and engineering curriculum almost will see a sea change.
Change our media of instruction online, jump on the online platform.
See that. As Subhas was highlighting.
So there was some interruption.
Yeah, there was some interruption.
Yeah.
The first time it's the first.
Okay.
I hope it is the last time.
So basically, I'm just ending by right now. I'm saying that the technology to actually provide online education and the training of the engineering graduates, these are not exactly the same, because it's only the IT part of technology that we are using for COVID. But the engineering education goes much beyond IT. But it is getting dominated by IT. Things are becoming more and more computational. So that's certainly the way the future has to go. And that's what when I started by saying the engineering education curriculum hasn't changed in the last 60, 70 years, we need to respond to the computational aspects requirements. Okay, but that is not exactly the same as just IT. IT is just one aspect of engineering.
Okay, Dr. V.S. Kanchana Bhaaskaran,
you
heard three of your colleagues, your opening comments.
Correct. All the three of them, they were actually right only. All their views were agreeable. And as for my opinion is concerned, for our population, actually every 1 in 6 citizens, 6 human being is in India. And we are going to be producing 1 out of every 4 graduates, they say, the statistics say. That being the case, we need to have, first of all, education. But what sort of education are we going to be having? Education is going to be there in very high demand. And that education, now we have got to have science, liberal arts, engineering, medicine, all of them, all the diversification of education are to be there in one place. NEP has actually put it very nicely. We have got to have all the sort of things together, and the curriculum also for engineering education, it shouldn't be the old curriculum what we have been having. It has to keep dynamically changing, and dynamically changing with respect to which particular application it is going for. Without a technology, we are not going to reach the society. So for any societal problems, we have got to bring in technology, and for that we need to have the education. If we are having teachers and students, we have got to educate the teachers in such a way that they will go for satisfying the demand of industry, and the students also identify their penchant, their interest, where they are actually shining, what is their strengths and what are their weaknesses. All this we have got to give room for them to identify. So engineering education is a must, and it is going to be thriving. But the engineering education in a different way, right from the curriculum development, where we shouldn't be having, we in practice go for a very wide knowledge dissemination to the students. That wide knowledge is good, the conceptual understanding is good. But beyond that, the student maybe right from 3rd year itself, 5th semester, 6th semester onwards, he should identify, within the first 2 years, he should identify what his interests are, what his strengths are, what the market demand is, and what the institution is good for, and you should identify, you should be given with the room to identify a focused stream of education also. Actually, in that direction, I would say an engineering student can go for taking something related to arts or something related to science, so that it's really reflecting on the requirements of the society. And beyond this, I would say the skilling and reskilling of the industry, that has to happen. We won't know in 2030, somewhere I think Dell Technologies report, it said we won't know by 2030 what sort of jobs are going to be there at all. 85% of the jobs, yeah, we are not going to be knowing. So unless we have dynamically learning and relearning people there, the institutions which will give such a facility there will not be able to cope up. And India being with such a very high demographic dividend, we have got to make use of it. Otherwise, with such big human power, we will not be able to even manage. So it's really necessary. And industry, I would say, as all the speakers said, we need to have industry along with the institutions. Without the industries taking part in the along with the institutions, we are not going to be having the direction identified properly, and neither the industry will be feeling it good, nor the university would be getting benefited. Ultimately, the students, the parents will not be happy about it. So we need to have engineering education, but engineering education in a totally different sense. We have got to have a dynamically changing engineering education. For that, the curriculum building is going to be playing a very major role. And curriculum building at it is going to be taking so much of good efforts from us.
Thank you, Dr. Bhaaskaran.
Thank you.
I think there has been a broad concurrence of the fact that engineering education, because of technology's increasing role in every business and every aspect of our life, will grow, and hence engineers will be in more demand. Professor Sen has brought in the angle of employability, and he's brought in the aspect of qualitative, advantage in engineering vis-a-vis the quantitative numbers we have. Dr. Bhaaskaran has brought in the fact that, there will be a new set of jobs that we don't even know that will get created. By the way, in 2034, we are slated to be singular, which is when the machines can do everything that the humans can do. So that's not far, that's only 14 years away. And who knows, it will happen faster. Dr. Chitkara has talked about hybrid or blended learning, that, the infrastructure that they've built will be useful, but the role of technology will grow. So it will be a mixture. At this point, Mr. Ruhail Amin, who's the senior editor with VW Business World, has also joined us. And he'll be my co-passenger, and he'll also ask a few questions. But let me ask you this question, and I get everyone to respond. My question is, what are your comments on the new education policy? What's good in it that is implementable, and what's not good in it? So I'd like to start this time with Dr. Bhaaskaran. Dr. Bhaaskaran, new education policy you referred to, but what's good in it? I know all of us have hailed it, but there must be something in it that can be improved.
Correct. The multidisciplinary setup, that is the first thing, what actually attracts us. And the problem-based students' understanding is not going to be enough. Remembering is not going to be enough. Applying the concept, creating, evaluating whether he has done good, and rethinking, looking at the constraints, that is going to be really more important. That is the first aspect. Second aspect, I would say, coming from a private institution, I would say, treating on par all the government and private institutions with respect to funding and all the regulations and all. That is a very great aspect of new educational policy. And the students are given multiple directions. The multiple universities, whichever university is good for whatever area, he can go for earning credit. The credit bank, academic credit bank approach, it's a wonderful thing. And with that, actually, if it is going to be possible, the student, based on the demand, market demand, he can identify the areas, identify the institutions, collect the credits. That is, he is going to be skilling himself, not just the paper. We say that the institutions are producing good number of graduates and the industries are in need of graduates, but who are skilled. But we have so much of gap between them. And the student, if he identifies, and the faculty, if they are able to provide such skills, and with the online education, what they have opened up, that is another positive advantage of what we have in the new education policy. Even previously, we were having up to 20% of the credits could be earned online. Now it is going to be 40%. And the universities which are performing well are to offer online education. All these are actually going to be changing the education environment as a whole. The student as a whole, if he is interested, he has got to be interested because it's a very highly competitive world. And for him to survive, he is going to be in need of such facilities. And I think with the teachers as facilitators can guide them so well, and the students can do wonderfully at it.
Thank you so much. Rohel, you go ahead and ask Dr. Chitkara, Professor Sen, and Kunwar, Shekhar, Vijendra ji questions.
So my first question is that while we are talking about the shift in education, the way we are addressing it in these tough times, there is also a point about cultural shift. For example, we have always taught in classrooms, and classroom education has been the mainstay of how we impart education. But now it's increasingly going online. So there is a cultural behavioral shift also involved. So how are you preparing your immediate stakeholders, which are the students, for this shift? Are you hand-holding them in taking this leap, which is totally digital?
Rohel, if I look at Shobit University, basically we have two universities. One is in Meerut and one is in a small town of district Saharanpur. And when this COVID crisis came, 17th of March, we went online with online education because we were doing all preparation since long. It was not the day that suddenly it came and we started doing it. But as one of our university is in a small town and majority of the students, they come from small rural areas. They come from villages, they come from small towns. And as Professor Sen mentioned, there is a digital divide also. In spite of the fact Digital India is happening from last many years and a lot of things have happened, but appropriate device, network, possibilities, economical issues, there are so many things. What are there?
Right.
So I always believe that universities or institutions, they should handhold each other. And it happens when you are socially connected institution. Many of our institutions, they are, I always call them island of excellence. Outside their boundaries, what is happening, nobody knows. And they do not allow anybody to learn from them. They feel, okay, I am doing good, that's fine. But luckily, Shobit University, right from the day one, from our inception, we have an approach that we are a part of the society because educational ecosystem cannot be a isolated ecosystem. It is a part of the larger social ecosystem. So we had all those possibilities with our students, and we started, yes, it was firefighting initially for first month in March. But then slowly things came up, and now the things are such that our students, our faculty, we started our new semester also on 20th of this month, last month, and things are moving very good. As you talked about cultural change, actually, you know, the biggest challenge is you may have the best technology, but the mentality is not there.
Absolutely. I think that is one of the mainstays of
mindset is not there. Because if you are teaching online, you are not doing anything. Generally, this is the perception. What you are doing, you are teaching online. However, we must appreciate and salute our faculty members, those who decided to shift immediately from a classroom model to digital model. And I always believe whenever there is a cultural change, go slow to go fast.
Right.
So what happened, many times we try to go very fast, but I always say that go slow, then only you can go fast. So that mindset has to be shifted. Second, what was the thing, like many of the faculty members, wonderful faculty members, those who are 60 plus, they were wonderful teachers, and they are. They were using a board and chalk and all those traditional methods. Suddenly people started talking, you do not know how to work in digital world, maybe you are useless. The best teachers, suddenly they were considered that they are not of any use. That has to be changed. Like we decided that we will handle not only our boys and girls, but the complete team in totality. And you will be surprised, like as one of our university, we said to our students, those who were living nearby, that even if you do not have a desktop, mobile, or anything, laptop, come to the university, take from our labs. Just university will give it, rent it out free of cost, give it to you, take it at your place and use it because labs are otherwise closed. So use it, and whenever it will be required, bring it back. So up to that level, handholding has to be there. And I'm happy that many universities were doing, and Shobita was also one of them.
I think you raised a very important point, which is about looking beyond just skill sets. For example, you have accomplished professors, academicians, just because they cannot download an application does not make them redundant. You know, I think we have to look beyond it. The whole knowledge, the whole understanding that they have, I think has to be kind of addressed. It has to be brought to the fore. You know, I think that's a very important point raised. At this point, I want to go to Dr. Chitkara. The same question actually to you is that how are you making it possible for your students to consume, to have the education that they want, you know, effectively while they are doing it digitally, and make sure that it is impactful, it helps them, changes them, it stays with them. How are you doing it?
I think in our case, Vijendra case is different from Chitkara University because we are very near to Chandigarh, and we were having only problem with the people who were from Kashmir region or who were from the interiors of the places. So that was only the problem. But otherwise, if you see as a whole, 90% of our students were very, very comfortable with the online mode of working. And 10% where we have to handhold them. So what we did was that otherwise the platforms were used and we were delivering the online lectures. But the people who were not able to do that, we did the Google Classrooms, and then we have some Coursera, we have the recorded lectures. So if they were not able to come for the webinars, they were not able to come for the Zoom sessions, or they were not able to do that, then our professors were doing it very consciously that recording is to be sent to those students. So that handling in the person, because we know that in universities we have a mentor-mentee system. So we have given students to one mentor, and that mentor was taking the responsibility to make sure that all the students under his or her guidance are comfortable with the online mode. The first thing was that. And the second was that the peer, and then the students, those who were very nearby, or those who can guide their peer students, or they can guide their friends, that this was the lecture today, recorded lecture, through the online mode or through whatever the course structure was given. So I don't think so that was a problem. And one thing mentioned that some of the professors who were 60 plus are to be handholded by the other faculty members. For that, we have a very beautiful concept happening in our campus is the team teaching. So one, if, for example, I am a teacher and I am good in technology, and second teacher is very good in the content. So what we have started doing was we are doing it that the content maker, the person who can make a very good content, he was concentrating on making those curriculums or those modules. And the person who was good in technology, and who is not having any fear in front of the camera. Because if you see our teachers, immediately they shifted to online mode. Their parents were in their classrooms. If you see that, otherwise there was a teacher-taught relationship where the students are there in their class. Now you don't know that who all are observing your lectures. So you are in your bedrooms, in your drawing rooms, the parents have also reached. The stakeholders have also reached. The industry is also there. So you don't know that who all are seeing you. So it becomes a fear amongst those teachers. But since they were good in technology already, so they helped the fellow teachers that you work on the module and I will deliver the lectures. So I think that hand-holding worked very well, and that hand-holding worked with the students also. And that is why we were able to complete all the modules in time. We were able to, because we have a My Anatomy platform where we did the evaluation. Evaluations were done and the results were, the students were not having any problem in giving the exams. So I think 1 or 2% students were having that problem, and we did took the assignments from them, and the results were declared, and the new session is already started. So I think that was a great challenge. I always say that this challenge gave the opportunity to the educators. And I think we always say that there is, invention is always, whenever there is a necessity, it becomes an invention.
There's an invention, yes. And rightly.
It becomes invention.
Rightly. And Professor Sen, I want to come to you at this point. One is this invention and this leap to digital, I think has also made it for us to easily accept the fact that henceforth online classes would be mainstream as well. So I want to also build in this point in the question that tell me your story about this digital leap that you have taken, and do you think this is here to stay for long?
I think.
Sorry, your audio is muted here.
You're asking me?
No, I'm asking Professor Sen this question. Yes.
Yeah, so I think I'd like to answer in two parts. One is how Shivnadar University handled the situation. And one is what I see in general as the future of online education. So the first part is that, rather than a leap, I would say that we were pushed into it, by the pandemic. No, we certainly wouldn't have made this transition so quickly unless we were forced to. In fact, as a relatively small size university, we could make the transition very quickly. In fact, it so happened, coincidentally, the week that the lockdown was declared, it was mid-semester break in Shivnadar. And so we didn't even lose one day of teaching. We shifted the next week, and persuaded all the teachers to basically do whatever they could with the online thing. And then, we kind of marched on, so seemingly quite smooth in terms of, getting onto the online. But then I can tell you that, quite frankly, that the semester that was supposed to wind up by end of April, it continued for an extra month, simply because the online is really stressful from both sides, particularly from student side. So the rate at which they can learn in an online mode is far less than what they can otherwise do in a classroom. So this is something we need to be mindful of. So the semester got stretched, not because we were slow in getting there, but for the fact that, the pace of learning slows down. Okay.
Right.
Then one thing that no one has yet mentioned in this panel, the education in particular in India, has two important components. One is the delivery, the other one the testing. They go hand in hand. Testing is something that is, even till now, the technology has nothing to offer in terms of testing. We have completely got stuck there. If you know about it, all of our national exams, have been stopped. JEE has been almost postponed indefinitely. Now the same thing has also hit the universities, right? The Delhi University, the Shivnadars, the IITs and everything. So then again, as I said, the classes stretched on for about a month beyond the normal deadlines. And then the exams was a much bigger challenge. How do you ensure, integrity of the exams? So that is the solution technology has yet to offer to us. I mean, there are some, things being peddled as solutions, but actually they are not. Okay. So this is the first part. I'm saying that Shivnadar University handled it, but we paid a price in terms of the semester got stretched. And we're going to start again in just next week. And this time it will be a bigger challenge because last semester was only half the semester. We had started it in the normal mode. So, completing in the alternate mode was relatively easier. But now when you start with, on an online mode, and also with new students who have never seen the campus. So I'm saying that the things are still unfolding, around the world, we can't say that we have actually mastered online education. And this kind of a scale, it has never happened before in the world. Everyone has self-doubts, okay? Look at the university in the US, what they did, they actually didn't even do the normal grading. They went to a pass no, right? And they actually also let the faculty prepare for almost 3 to 4 months to see how they can start the next semester. So I'm saying that it remains to be seen how effective the online education is and how the pedagogy basically adapts. Okay. Now coming to the other part about in general, the way I see online education, the content is just one aspect, and I would say that content is the least of my problems. With the internet, the content has been so much a rich content about any subject. The problem is overloading of information. For a student, the student doesn't know which website one should seek. That actually helps or enhances his or her perspective of learning. Okay, so that is exactly where the teacher comes in. If you just about content, you have all the content available on the internet, much better than any one of us can do or teach or tell. But then that is where exactly the role of the teacher comes. The teacher in a class basically exposes the student to a subject in a way where there is an interactive mode, where the student finds it easier to learn. The teacher also, also has there's interaction that helps in that exchange, which is very difficult to achieve on the online mode. If you have, let me bring another example. If you look at these now very famous, Salman Academy lectures, they are delivered exactly in the mode that Blackboard teaching was being delivered. Okay, with full clarity. So it uses the very advanced technology, but then at the end of the day, on the screen, what you see basically is a blackboard and a chalk, and the teacher is articulating exactly in the same way that I was taught. Okay, so that is one pedagogy which can be which can remain, along with the other ways where people throw PowerPoint slides at students, where people throw videos at students. So these are actually pedagogical techniques or strategies that was in existence even before the pandemic hit us. Many of the teachers, so every teacher has his or her own way of exposing things. And with the online, what is happening is that I won't be worried too much about people not being able to adapt to it. I'm more worried about what is actually you are missing out. You're missing out the experience of the campus. You're missing out in interacting with your peers. You're missing out basically the inspiration the teacher leaves the class. So it can never match the normal physical classroom mode of teaching. So we'll be in this mode till the pandemic forces us to. But then what's going to happen, and I must concede that, is that since we're pushed into it, we have got into a territory that we wouldn't have otherwise entered. And then we'll actually pick up some of the good things about it. So in future, things are going to become a little bit of more blended, and also the online will also depend on which subjects you're learning. I think it's very subject specific. Certain subjects can be very easily taught over online, like managerial courses, basically business management courses. But if you look at something like engineering courses, which is the main topic, there is another huge aspect of engineering, that is the lab experience. You cannot have that
created online. Yes.
So that's another huge challenge.
Right. Great. Thank you. Dr. Bhaaskaran, I want to come to you at this stage. You have heard the other speakers before you. How much do you agree with what they have said? What are your thoughts about this transition?
Yeah,
which is also being called forced transition also, sometimes. So.
Yeah, it was a forced transition. And if we had gone for converting ourselves to online, it would have taken few years at least. But the nature gave us, or rather the COVID gave us only a week's time, and we had to switch on. And all the faculty members, the students, everyone, they were cooperating. They were able to manage. It was a very big change, and all of them had actually accommodated, got themselves accommodated to it. And the primary thing what we need here is the digital infrastructure. Digital infrastructure in terms of not the brick and mortar thing, the digital infrastructure where we will have the students reaching out to all the tools. Like how our previous speaker said, some of the courses are fit for online. Some of the courses would be in need of laboratory sessions wherein the students should access the high-end tools and all. So actually what we did is we have VPN access to some of the tools, and we have a virtual desktop interface also for some of the tools, and we had our students assessing them. And the primary thing what actually in March when it happened was the assessment part of it. We had the teaching part online, okay, that was happening well, but the assessment, how should it be? Because the way in which we had been doing, normally we go for even open book examinations also. So it was not very difficult for us. In the case of open book examinations, we can just give the students the questions and the students wouldn't be able to copy from any of the sources. So that way, if we give the question, the assessment also can happen. And that is what we were able to do that, and it was going good. But the peer learning, what we would have, the project-based learning, what we attempt, and the project-based learning where the student should be part of a team, where he has to contribute along with others, those things actually were difficult. So now we have got to identify such projects where the student can still learn and do combined also, because the students cannot work themselves in silos. We have got to make them work together, and for a bigger project, each of them should contribute, how they combine everything, and that sort of a thing has to happen. And the other problem is the research. All the research scholars, they had gone for fear of staying in the city, because Chennai with a huge population, it was always very difficult for them. So they, from their home, how do they reach out to the tools and all, to the facilities, what we have? There only we took the help of our VPN and VDA facilities, and those things actually were helping us. And that way, I would say, rather than spending so much in the brick and mortar, hereafter, in future, we are to go for partial, that is the blended learning, wherein the on-campus classes would go on, and the online classes also should go for reaching to the people. And the sort of dissemination of knowledge directly in the class and dissemination of knowledge online. But for that to happen, both the online and face-to-face are going to be there. But the students who are the consumers, who are the customers, I would say, who are the learners, they have got to have their full dedicated efforts. They have got to have their own self-determination to learn, and they should be responsible to learn where the knowledge is coming from. They should seek out the knowledge. They have now multiple resources, but how they are going to be managing, it is dependent on them.
Totally. Before I move on to my next set of questions, I just want to make a small announcement for our viewers that you can post your questions on Facebook. You can post it here on Zoom. We'll be asking those questions to these esteemed speakers. You don't get the chance to meet them every day. So, Prof, Mr. Vijendra, I want to come to you, Mr. Vijendra, with this. There's a fact also that engineering colleges, have largely, they have been everybody's looking up to them as institutions of excellence. They have a certain baggage, because if you see from the startup communities to the, the biggest of disruptors across the world, they have come from engineering backgrounds. My question is that, is there a constant pressure on engineering schools, especially the leaders, from there to innovate, to produce more leaders? Is there a pressure always because there's a certain baggage, that is there of excellence?
Yes, there is. And if there is not, there must be. Because if you look at the integrated system of educational institutions like education, research, innovation, catalyst, this is the basic role what educational institutes are having. Knowledge exchange, innovation, and entrepreneurship. These are something new which have come. Then economic development and competitiveness. So many things are there in this ecosystem that we have always to have that optimum pressure, that we have to remain on the track. I always believe that there is no race, there is no rat race. I have to be better than some other institution. But we have to be on the track. And you know what happened, Rohil, on that issue? many times we felt, I'm talking about engineering institutions and especially the new ones, that if I will give X skill to my boys and girls, they will get employment. And generally that employment was temporary because every skill has a shelf life. We have not given them a fluid skill mindset. We have not trained them with fundamentals. We gave them some superficial skills and we said they will get employment. And that's why today when people talk about non-employability of engineers of certain institution, they talk that this number of engineers are employable, that number is there. Because we have neither worked on the fundamentals, on the foundation, nor we have given that mindset that whatever will come, I will create something. Because as I mentioned in my very first note, that engineers are creators. And if they are creators, that mindset has to be developed, that training has to be given. And this pressure that always you have to be on the track, that pressure is always good.
Right. And on that note, Dr. Batra is back. And an engineer also somewhere, yes.
So there's lots of questions that are coming. One of them, it's all to all. One is Dr. Madhu, Dr. T.S. Krishna, Ramakrishna Rao doesn't share who it is. One is, what are your respective organizations doing to improve the employability of students? You have addressed it in some way in whatever you've said, because most surveys indicate more than 50% engineering graduates are unemployable. Professor Sen has alluded to that. But what are you doing specifically within you? Second question is specifically to Dr. Madhu Chitkara. What role global online learning platforms can play in becoming mainstream? What type of such university online platform partnerships will be most impactful? T.S. Ramakrishna Rao is asking, will the pandemic spur the entrepreneurship activity among Indian students? And there are other questions on the chat. We can address these three and then we can take those. Yes, Dr. Chitkara.
I will just go through that one of the questions, I think by Dr. Ramakrishnan something. So they were talking about the entrepreneurship. And in that, I will just tell you that how the Chitkara University is working with them. During the pandemic, we announced the scholarship of 1 CR to the students, and that activity was Novate, where we requested them to work on some of the projects which they can work online, and their solution to the society. That problem was the problem of this COVID-19. And what they did was, I will give you some of the examples where they gave the solutions to the society. Since we have adopted the villages, they were giving us the problems and they were asking us problem statements for them, the solutions for them. So they came up with 5 of the patents they filed. And with that, I think I will give you that they did the face masks, then very low cost ventilators, and then automatic sanitizing booths. So they did that on their own, and industry was just observing those type of innovators. And this is a time where they should not be always the job seekers, they should be the job creators, and they should try to do this. And for that, we have a very beautiful system of innovation in our campus. It is an innovation hub. We say this is an explore hub. We have incubation centers, 3 incubation centers we have 2 universities and we have 2 schools. So in 4 institutes, we have incubation centers. Even a student from a school is also working in that incubation center. 188 plus startups are there. So we are providing them the seed money to work on those projects. And in that way, they have started employing their junior students from the Chitkara University. So I think this ecosystem has to start, I think somewhere or the other, because every time you can't search for a job and you have to do something very innovative there, because and even not only the engineering students, they were going for their own setup, but the students from hospitality, students from media, they started their own system and they are employing the others. So I think this is the new ecosystem which we have to start with it. The second question was connected with the technology, and I think for that some of the previous speakers were also talking about it. And this is a time where when the laboratory works are there, when the labs are there, when the workshops are there. So if this situation is there for another 1-2 months more, and I think students are not coming to the campuses and physical appearance is not possible. Theory can be done, but the practicals, and I think that was a concern of the previous speakers also. For that, what we have started doing is from the augmented and virtual reality, using that, we are this as a primary technological tool. We are doing the laboratory demonstrations and hands-on learning. So we have started doing that. Rest history will tell that how successful we were and how effective this mode of teaching was for the students. Till today, students are very comfortable, but they are missing the campuses. I always say in my webinars that we are missing them and they are missing the campuses, because their physical presence on the campuses where so much of happenings were happening, and that is not there. I think we all are missing. That will happen only when the total students will be on the campus. So some offline mode, some online mode will be the new normal and new future. Thank you, sir.
Okay, the same response from a question, same question to Kunwar, Shekhar, Vijendra. What are you doing to improve employability? मुद्दे की बात यह है कि
सीधा बात उसी पे मैं आता हूँ. There are two things, employability. One is employability, one is entrepreneurship. And when I look at employability, there is a divide between industry and academia. And what has to be done for that, what we are doing, that an integrated curriculum and integrated learning environment has to be created. What we have done in our campuses, like with industry, we start discussing in the very start, and we know that a student, what he wants to do, where he wants to go. Generally, and one more thing is there, like our last semester is on the floor of the industry. 7 semesters, students, they remain on campus. Last full semester, they go to the industry. But before going to the industry, 5th semester onwards, their interaction with that particular industry starts. Like we are not like we do not give a specific set of skills to everybody. We start talking to individual student, what you will like to do, what is your aspiration. You want to become an entrepreneur, you want to go for industry, which industry, why, and that personal hand-holding starts. And I am saying that I always say that Shobit University is not having a placement cell, a formal placement cell. But 100% of our boys and girls, they are placed. Because that integrated learning environment has been created, that student and industry, they both become part of this journey of 4 years. And it is providing a wonderful opportunity and possibility to our students. As the entrepreneurship is concerned, if I come on that also, I believe in past also I must have mentioned, we have developed one SEIZ on campus. Like a SEZ, it is SEIZ. This is a Skill Entrepreneurship Innovation Zone. My concern is that if you want to become an entrepreneur, you should work with local industry. You should try to identify local problems. Because if you will say, I'm going to work with ABC of America, possibilities are less there. But we say now you interact with local industry. This SEIZ is a group of enthusiastic students and local SMEs, MSMEs, other industry. They come together, so they find a gap and they start with something doing.
Okay, response, Dr. V.S. Kanchana Bhaaskaran ji, your response to how you're enhancing employability.
Yeah, actually, the institutions, we need to have, in our university also we follow that. There is in every course, we have an employer-led module. On 8th module we have, in which we get the employers, they give their input. the topics would be straight away the contemporary topics, what you have related to that particular course. That sort of a thing creates even the partnership between the university and then the institution. And along with that, we go for embedding entrepreneurship also. Entrepreneurship capabilities are like others speakers said. So I would not elaborate on that. Other than that, we have the real life projects. The students should go for taking the real life projects, which they have got to have hands-on experience and with which they get from the industries. And the industries also, I would say, proactively they should come to the university and with the future problems what they may have beyond 5 years after this particular time, if they are going to be doing something, that they have got to try it out in the university. That way, actually, we are tying up with the NASCOM also to offer the industry required demands, whatever we have the big demands of the industry like IoT and all. We have even the 3D printers, and we have AI, ML, everything. All such topics we are giving it through training to our faculty members. We give them training, and through the faculty members we go for giving the training to our students also. That has to really happen. And along with that, we have got to have international collaboration also, international exposure of faculty members and the students also. We go for sending our students for international universities, and we have programs also like a tie-up with the 2 years here and 2 years there. And that sort of a thing actually is enabling us to go for keeping ourselves up to date and to have the employability of the students also increasing. As I said before, the employability beyond 10 years we won't know. Therefore, we have got to keep ourselves learning and relearning. And that is what we are trying to do to our students also. And that actually is giving us the right satisfaction on the part of the students, at the part of the parent, and also industries. Industries do recognize that. And that industry institute immersion actually will play a very good role in that. And the courses, curriculum, we take in input from the industries for the curriculum development, what the demands are and what the programs are. NAP, in that sense, I like it very much. You go for offering the programs which are going to be futuristic. You go for identifying such programs and start offering. But offering such programs is not going to be coming with that easy. We need to identify the requirements, the demand, what the skills, what are going to be needed to meet the demand, and what would be the right curriculum, and how to have the curriculum changing itself dynamically based on the changes what the industry is in need of. And for that to happen, being a deemed university, we are having that sort of an advantage. And we are able to have the curriculum and the syllabi changed as per the requirement. And that actually is a very major part with the input from industry, academia, the alumni, parents also. We take the input from the faculty and the present students. With all the inputs, we work for that. Therefore, the outcomes itself, if we are defining towards the employability, it can never go wrong. And that is a sort of thing I think is going to be the necessary thing, and what we are following also.
Okay, Professor Sen, you were the one to bring up employability, quality versus quantity. So what are you doing at the Shiv Nadar University to make sure employability is of the right nature? You'll have to unmute yourself, Professor Sen.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I may have been, too brief, and maybe I have been misunderstood a little bit. I mean, employability was certainly an issue I brought up, but let me elaborate a little bit more. The graduates of university, engineering, particularly engineering school. So there are 4 schools in SNU, and engineering school is just one of them. So of course, the primary ambition of the students in the engineering school, the overwhelming number of students opt for taking up a job right after graduation. But then let me also point out that as many as almost, I think, close to a third of the students, okay, they are either targeting higher education, where they actually want to go do masters, PhD, and perhaps even head for an academic career, or they are very interested in entrepreneurship. Okay. So when I said employability, let me just, we are talking about, let's say, yes, a majority of the students, maybe 2/3 of the students, and for them, as I said, the curriculum cannot cater to specific industries. Like Mr. Kunwar Shekhar pointed out, the university should not be looked upon as an employment exchange. We facilitate employment, we help the students to get to the destinations. So the most important thing about a curriculum is to teach them how to learn, okay, so that they can be lifelong learners. It's not about skilling, reskilling, going and taking crash courses. If you have learned your basics well, if you have got the right ethos of learning, wherever you are, you'll be able to adapt very quickly. Sometimes I think that industry makes a big deal out of, okay, he doesn't know this or that, but actually when I've got into sometimes conversations with, our employers, and I found out that what they're asking for is something that takes maybe 2 weeks to learn. No, so something that takes 2 weeks to learn, why should a university try to change the curriculum just for that? It's a tweak, that could upset our balance, right? So it's for the university, for the industry, basically, to take them through training programs, pick up the good students, with the right aptitude and train them, okay? But having said that, let me also point out, yes, to help students, get to the dream companies, the university, outside its curriculum, they have these short-term courses that are taught by well-known third-party providers. As I said, even though I said it takes 15-20 days, but still, those 15-20 days are very difficult to find within the curriculum. So they have to basically go outside the curriculum and they get trained. They go through the things like even self-training. So we have access to something called this, I'm sure you heard about it, the Coursera platform. The Coursera platform helps, self-learn basically. Okay, the student can teach himself or herself, some new technology or some new some new facet, which may not be important enough to fit in the curriculum, but that just gives him that sharpness of that extra edge. And so this is about people who are interested in employment, and the employment records are really sort of picking up in the last few years. I've seen that. And everything's in the numbers, the average salaries, and so on and so forth. The other aspect is that the students who want to actually go for a particular industry, as some of the previous speakers said, they actually hook up with them even early before they graduate as these internships. So internships related placements are also now kind of dominating. So if you are interested in a certain kind of industry, right after your second year, third year, you go and actually spend time with them. So within the curriculum, there is an option of spending the entire last semester. That is, it's a 4-year curriculum. So the 8th semester can be totally spent in industry. And often, these leads to full-fledged employment. These are called pre-placement offers, and they fusion into full-fledged employments. So while I said employability is an issue, but what I'm saying that it's actually not such a difficult problem if you are producing quality students and you're giving them quality.
Yes. Now, let me ask your closing comments from each one of you. Let me start from Dr. V.S. Kanchana Bhaaskaran this time, because we started with Kunwar, Shekhar, Vijendra ji. Your closing comments. If I spoke to you a year from now, what would have been the changes that would have happened in the engineering curriculum, in the pedagogy, in examinations, and in placements? These are the 4 areas that matter when it comes to it. So if I talk to you a year from now, what should we look at accomplishing as a collective community?
Okay, pedagogy, assessment. Yeah, as far as the assessment is concerned, I would say it is going to be, if we go for online assessment, it is going to be the higher order thinking skill of the student, what is to be tested, what he has really learned towards the outcome, what is sought from him. And in that direction, as I said, the sort of questions what we give is going to be oriented towards testing for the creative ability of the student rather than the understanding and all. and he has to be able to analyze after whatever he has created. And that would be the sort of assessment methodologies. And assessment, actually, we use LMS for assessment even now itself for the present semester students also. And 1 year from now, maybe we would have gone for even proctored, custom-built, proctored examination we would go for. But the students, we have got to believe the student, we have got to give them the questions which cannot be copied from each other, and which has got to give him the satisfaction of having learned something. So the questions is set up that we are going to have the faculty ought to practice so much in that. So the assessment part is going to be in that sense, and also the projects what he is creating, what he has created, that also is going to be speaking. And the pedagogy, it's going to be the blended learning we have already talked about. And in the case of letting him understand all these sort of technological advantages we can go for exploiting. How AR can be used, in what subjects I can use, and to what extent I can use it to the student to let him understand the concept, and how he can go for developing, and for developing what has to be the approach, what even I could go for having the technology exploited even to identify how the student is doing across all the semesters. I could go for analyzing his performance. I could even know what his interests are, where he performs well, and what his weaknesses are, how to actually enable him learn better. And those students,
the short closing comments, not very long.
Correct. What is the next point?
You're essentially saying is that you, as Professor Sen also said, that in the first year, second, third year, you know the student's orientation. So make sure the last year, right from internships to the kind of jobs that student is aligned to, are identified, and that is what will create the right prepared.
We are getting our students internships in the second year, for example, the PG students, and they are being observed in the companies, and that is a very good practice for the UGs also.
And then went on to a business school, so I have some understanding of engineering, having been a BTech in computer science myself. So thank you. Dr. Chitkara, your closing comments?
It will be, I will be very short and crisp, that if we see the post-COVID and the next year, how we are going to work, I think in my view...
What will stay and what will not stay?
Yeah, so
something has been forced by COVID.
I will say that one thing which will be going to stay is the first thing, the interaction with all the stakeholders. That is to stay back. Reason being that if you see the latest Smart India Hackathon, and which we were also one of the nodal centers. So DRDO has given the problems to our university to ask for the solution. So that is going to happen. That the industry will be coming very closely with the academia to give the questions to the academia to find out the solutions by these new innovators. And the young innovators will give the solutions which of our age is not able to give that, because they are very technology savvy. Second is everybody was saying about, and I also said in one of my explanations, that blended learning will be the future of educational system, and it will be across the globe, not only in our country, but it will be across the globe. And with online education going to stay back, because UGC is also saying that 40% of the modules can be taken through online mode and 60% can be through the offline mode. The second can be, I'm very crisp about it. The second is that the socially relevant and outward facing engineering curriculum will soon be the primary learning focus. And the engineering schools have to work on this, whatever the socially relevant problems. COVID-19 has taught us that those solutions were needed, whether it is that how to have the face mask or how to go for the small innovations, which is helpful in this COVID-19. The third is that universities, without scalability and without sustainable IT infrastructure. Universities, you talk about colleges, you talk about schools, you talk about any educational institution, if they are not having the sustainable IT infrastructure, they are going to vanish, because this is the need of the hour. And augmented reality, virtual reality, this will be the primarily technological tools. Reason being that if we are in the offline mode and the technology is to be given in the labs, so then these will be very, very helpful for the innovators, for the educators to work on. And last but not the least is that the SMEs, the industries which is very nearby to our the education institutes, they will be there to co-teach our students with the new age technology because of new normal and online teaching. Because they will be coming to the campuses or online mode or the through offline mode. They will be talking to the mentees and how to go for this particular technology. So they will be very helpful to our educational institutions. I think that will be the future of education.
Okay, Shekhar Vijendra, your final words. If we talk to you 1 year from now, what are the changes we would have seen already implemented? You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I believe that environment will be there, that the students will have more to think and learn more effectively themselves. Because this blended learning, MOOCs, Coursera was mentioned, edX is there, so many things are there. And this blended learning and these experiences of last few months, they will force students to learn by themselves more. And this learning will be integrated with the industry, integrated with the faculty, because I always say like faculty which was teaching, now they all are co-learners. They all are learning. And this learning has to happen more and more. And I wish that in our campuses, more learning happens than teaching, then the things would suddenly change. And we all wish so.
Okay. And placement will the engineering school placement will be better than last year, or will they'll be tepid?
It will be better. It will be better. Why it will be better? Because, you know, when I look at Shobit University, our niche areas are multidisciplinary in nature. Like we are working in agriculture informatics, biomedical engineering, bioinformatics. So these are such areas, they are always in demand. And especially during these crisis times, all these branches, they have come up nicely, very nicely. Our computing was always there, computer science. So, or in electronics, we are working in bioelectronics. So these
are asking, I'm sure your university will do. I'm asking overall, will the engineering jobs, you know, be robust? Because there is a slowdown in the economy. For now, it may change in the next 3 months, but for now there is a slowdown, and that's why I asked that question. Professor Sen, your closing comments.
Thank you. So I'll be very brief. So you basically inquired about the changes that we were to see a year down. So number one, I think it will be the end of all national exams, evaluations. You know, all these JEE kind of exams, etc. People have to rethink. You know, because it's completely got stalled because of such issues. So we may invent a new way of college admission, particularly the public universities, and I mean more generally, actually the evaluation paradigm is going to change. So it will be more and more of continuous evaluation, whether it's selections, whether it's internal exams or whatever. Okay. Number two, of course, there will be rapid expansion of digital online now because it's, like I said, it's force majeure. But now that we have actually got into that domain, I think some people realize that it can deliver more, at the fringes. So basically, think the people who we couldn't reach, that outreach is going to increase through digital. So the best universities, so I really don't believe so much in blended education. We are in the blended mode because we are forced to. So the best universities will continue to impart education that they were doing, but the weaker ones, okay, and also the sections that we couldn't reach, this is an excellent, sort of thing to have happened that we'll be able to reach out to them through the new platforms and technology and other paradigm changes. So that's second. And for engineering education, as one of the previous speakers said, and I also said before, the challenge is, handling laboratories, the hands-on experience. And actually, I think we are going to move more and more towards computational platforms. There are excellent simulators available, very, very expensive, virtual visualizations. Those things are going to really come in heavily. We're going to abandon the old style of teaching engineering, drawing, and workshops and actually migrate to that.
Okay. I think it was one of the best panels that I did, which was realistic. It was very representative of what's happening in the engineering education domain. And we got some very real inputs on where it is headed, what are the changes it is seeing, what are the changes that will remain, and what are the changes that will get accelerated. So really, my takeaway from this is that first of all, engineering possibly is the silver lining in the higher education cloud, because the technology immersion will lead to more jobs. Second, engineering education will become multidisciplinary more than ever. Third, employability will come into focus. Fourth, it will be a blended learning or mixed learning, or it will be a combination of on-campus and off-campus through technology. Placements next year are not likely to change. The new education policy is good because it has taken some of the past criticism of the engineering education and incorporated solutions and changes that kind of cover that. Implementation will be the key. And last but not the least, we'll focus from just giving jobs and giving diplomas, degrees, to actually creating better learning, which in itself will lead to better quality of jobs and better professionals. So that's where I'll leave it. Thank you so much, Dr. Bhaaskaran. Thank you so much, Kunwar, Shekhar, Vijendra. Thank you so much, Dr. Chitkara. And thank you so much, Professor Sen, for your time and input. We at BW Education wish you luck. The BW Education Engineering School issue is out tomorrow. I'm sure you will enjoy reading it. And we at bweducation.com and BW Business World and businessworld.in will keep coming to you with industry leaders who are in some way shaping the discourse in our industry and are also implementing what they are professing on the show. So thank you so much. God bless you.